Our question had to do with fear, so we decided to start off with probably one of my favorite quotes from Star Wars.
Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering.
Just how we threw Yoda in there. So we also had a wordle that we made for fear. We made a wordle about fear, kind of just because that was the main focus of our big question. We also have a poll here. This poll, click on it. Things in before I start talking. Are people still texting?
I think we're good.
We'll just start talking, scroll down to the bottom. The first one thing leads to another. That actually is a really good statement because when you look at, especially in night with the Holocaust and Lord of the Flies also, but when fear starts to kind of take over in the Holocaust and the camps, it just seems to keep getting worse. It starts out where they're being fed decently and just being worked hard. Then it starts to be they're being tortured and it just slowly gets worse and worse. The words all kind of mean the same thing. They kind of feel, but maybe in different ways. That is true too. Most of the words in the wordle are just kind of are very similar. They all really can be related directly back to fear. Most of them just connect with mistakes that cause fear. Fear is big, and that's kind of the obvious one. I noticed that all the words in the wordle describe the type of feeling you have when you deal with hate. That actually is a really, really good observation. I hadn't thought of that one. Our big question was, how does fear affect your choices? We tried to relate this. We chose this actually as a combination of how does human nature affect our choices, and really one of the other big questions was just fear, question mark. And we actually liked those two, so we decided to combine them into how does fear affect our choices, which is really relevant in all of these books.
In Lord of the Flies, we noticed that Jack represented like the worst of human nature when it was unoppressed or unhindered by society.
Yeah, well, that has to
He began to dance and his laughter became bloodthirsty, snarling. And that was when he was on the pig hunt, and like that just showed like how lost he was in everything and how like he became the worst in human society and went to savagery.
Yep, he became a savage after he wanted power and wanting to have a day.
Ralph is the voice of democracy and equal equality. He represents the government and the group of people.
We have a quote.
That understand what in the whole world was slipping away.
This was when Ralph started to come to realize how terrible things were becoming on the island and how Jack's savagery was starting to take over his and Piggy's democracy idea. That's really one of the big turning points in the novel when everything starts to go really, really bad. And it kind of is, I feel, foreshadowing to the death later on, how Savage is building up, and he's so afraid that it's going to take over and hurt people, and it ends up killing someone.
The beast is first mentioned by Little and the notion is immediately dismissed by Ralph. Simon is the first child on the island to realize that the beast is created by the boy's imagination. You knew, didn't you? I'm part of you. Close, close, close. I'm the reason why it's no-go, why things are what they are.
That one was from when he was having the kind of staring contest with a dead pig head on the spike. That was a really, really kind of powerful moment in the novel with all of the kind of tension that was building up from his realization that it's all in their head, which is probably scarier than when you think about, oh, there's an actual beast, oh, we are the beast. It's kind of like, it's easy to rationalize and try to kill something that's attacking you, but when you're the one that's attacking you, it's it's a lot harder to deal with. It's a lot harder to rationalize how to deal with it. So we realized that fear affected everyone's choices in a big way in Lord of the Flies. One of the biggest ones was with Jack, who was afraid that he was losing power on the island, so he formed his own tribe and brought down anyone who was a threat to him. Whether he was trying to do this by building himself up, or whether he was trying to do this by tearing someone else down, he didn't care, as long as he was gaining everyone underneath him so that he could have complete total control and feel safe, because he was afraid, honestly, of the beast. Whether or not any of them wanted to admit it, they were all afraid of the beast.
Fear by Matthew Dempsey. I fear the struggle, I fear the strife, a fear of death, a fear of life. I fear for you, I fear for me, I fear of what will come to be. There's plenty of fear in fear itself. I fear the pain and fear poor help. I fear my well is running dry. I fear so much, I'm forced to cry. I fear disaster, I fear the knife, I fear the blade that is my life. I fear the man I came to be, I fear the dark and fail to see. I fear life's left me on the shelf. I fear there's so much and it harms my health. I fear the help for which I cry. I fear success. I'm scared to try.
I really think this poem ties really well in with Night, because it talks about how he fears disaster and he fears the blade that is his life, and he fears to try, which is kind of the way that things were set up in the concentration camps. There was so much fear concentrated in the prisoners that no one was going to try to rise up because they feared dying too much. They feared that they were going to lose their life. We thought about Ellie, and we thought, even though Ellie was afraid, he chose to keep fighting for his freedom. Whether he didn't directly fight, but he tried to fight by keeping positive thoughts. Even though in his memoir, we can notice him slipping into a little bit of a depression when bad things happen, he always pulls himself out of it, which I think is very, very heroic for someone to be able to do in the situation he was in. To be able to deal with all of the death happening around you, and one day you might be talking to someone on the line next to you, and the next day they've been taken and they're dead, and you know that that's where they've gone. And to be able to continue working without breaking down and wanting to die yourself really was crazy. One of the biggest moments that I noticed all of this was the moment when they're running in the snow away, and they're running to the camp after the Russian liberation is kind of coming through. And he keeps running with his father, and the boy that he saw continued to run even though his father fell behind, kind of had forsaken his father. I saw that that's one way that some people were kind of dealing with that fear. They were trying to cut all weight that could hold them back, whereas Ellie was being brave enough to try to stay back and stick with his father even though it might have meant his own death. So, what was our conclusion to this question? Fear affects everything we choose to do, either directly or indirectly, and it's mostly to that yin and yang property, because without fear you can't have hope, without bad you can't have good, and vice versa. So whether or not you can think of it as Ellie was motivated by hope that he could stay alive, that's kind of being motivated by the opposite of fear. He's being motivated to try to avoid fear to stay alive is kind of the way I chose to thought about it. And whether or not it was someone's actions was to stay alive out of fear of death, or whether it was someone's actions out of direct fear, whether someone was afraid of something and then attacked. One of the moments in Lord of the Flies with the giant powwow kind of thing, with the filing center they're running around, and Simon climbs out of the bushes and gets stabbed and killed. Really, that was them acting directly out of fear that the beast was coming into their camp. Or when Piggy's glasses were trampled on and they were taken away from him later, that was indirectly, they were afraid that without a fire they wouldn't be able to stay alive. So they chose to go in. They were afraid of something and they made an action to try to avoid that fear. It wasn't a direct result of fear, but indirectly it did have an effect. So throughout the novels, fear affected absolutely everything, almost absolutely everything.